Have you ever really thought about what it takes to make something or someone officially holy, not just respected, but truly set apart for a divine purpose? Well, today we're stepping back in time, opening up the ancient text of Exodus 29 to witness one of the most detailed ceremonies ever recorded, the consecration of a priest. We're going to walk through this chapter step by step, and I promise you won't forget it.
So here's our roadmap. We'll start with a sacred checklist of items they had to gather. Then we'll watch as the priests are dressed for their divine role. After that, we dive into two powerful sacrifices, one for atonement and one for ordination. We'll see how a sacred meal cements their new legacy, and finally, we'll uncover the daily promise that this whole ceremony was leading up to. It's a journey from simple preparation to the very presence of God.
All right, every big event starts with getting your stuff together. But this isn't just a shopping list, it's a divine prescription. The very first step is to gather a very specific set of items exactly as ordered. Let's walk through this. Verse 1 kicks it off. God commands them to bring a young bull and 2 rams. Just picture them being led forward. Strong, perfect animals without a single flaw. That phrase, without blemish, is key. Only the absolute best is good enough. Now, for verse 2, shift your focus to the bakers. They're using the finest wheat flour to make 3 kinds of bread, all of it unleavened, no yeast, which was a symbol of purity. Imagine simple flatbreads, then richer little cakes mixed with olive oil, and finally these paper-thin wafers just brushed with that same anointing oil. Then, in verse 3, all this bread is carefully placed into a single basket. So you've got this one image, the perfect animals and the pure bread, all brought together, ready to go. This is the complete consecration kit. With all the elements gathered, the focus now pivots to the men themselves, Aaron and his sons. And listen, this isn't just about putting on some fancy clothes. It's a total transformation, both physically and symbolically, into their new holy roles.
The whole process starts in verse 4. Picture Aaron and his sons standing right at the entrance of the tabernacle, the center of everything. And here, they're washed with water. Imagine it just pouring over them, a powerful visual of a total cleansing, washing away their ordinary life to prepare them for a holy one. Now, verse 5, the dressing begins, and every layer has meaning. First, a simple white tunic. Over that, a stunning blue robe. Then comes the ephod, this intricate apron-like garment. And finally, the famous breastplate, set with 12 precious stones, each one representing a tribe of Israel. He is literally carrying the entire nation over his heart. The dressing continues in verse 6. A pure white turban is carefully wrapped around Aaron's head. And then you see the glint of gold as the holy crown, this golden plate with the words, "Holiness to the Lord," etched into it, is tied on. He's now crowned for God's service. And then the climax comes in verse 7. A flask of special anointing oil is brought out. Just picture it being poured over his head, and not just a symbolic drop, but so much that it runs down his beard and onto the collar of his new robes. This is the moment, the undeniable sign that he has been set apart by God. But this ceremony isn't just for Aaron. Verse 8 tells us to bring his sons forward. They get dressed in their own simpler priestly outfits, tunics and sashes, showing their supporting role. Then verse 9 seals the deal, not just for them, but for every generation to come. As they all stand there, dressed for service, God makes a declaration. The priesthood is theirs forever. It's a perpetual statute. It's like a spiritual torch is being lit right here and passed down through their family line for good. Okay, so the priests are dressed for the part, but now they have to be made spiritually ready. Before they can go to God on behalf of the people, they have to deal with their own imperfections. This first round of sacrifices is all about atonement. It's about making things right. The ritual begins in verse 10. That young bull is brought forward. Aaron and his sons all lay their hands firmly on its head. Picture this. It's not a gentle pat. It's a symbolic pressing down, as if they're transferring all their sin and flaws onto this animal. Next, in verse 11, the bull is killed right there at the entrance of the tabernacle. And verse 12 shows us what happens with the blood, the symbol of life. The priest dips his finger into it and smears it on the 4 horns of the great bronze altar. The horns represented power, so putting the blood there was like a direct appeal for God's forgiveness. Now, we see the 2 parts of this sin offering. Verse 13, the most valuable internal parts, the fat, which was seen as the richest portion, are carefully removed and burned on the altar. Imagine that smoke rising, an offering going up to God. But verse 14 is so important. The rest of the bull, the meat, the hide, everything else, is carried completely outside the camp. Picture it being taken far away from the holy area
and burned until it's nothing but ash. It's this powerful visual of sin being totally removed, taken away from the presence of God and the community for good. All right, next up is the first of the two rams. In verse 15, just like with the bull, Aaron and his sons place their hands on its head, but this time it's an act of pure dedication. Verse 16, after the ram is killed, its blood is taken and literally thrown against all four sides of the altar, completely covering it. Then in verse 17, the ram is carefully prepared and washed. And finally, verse 18, the entire animal is placed on the altar to be consumed by fire. This is a burnt offering, and it symbolizes a complete surrender, rising up to God as a sweet aroma.
So that first sacrifice dealt with the past, with sin. This next one, the second ram, is all about the future. This is the official ram of consecration, and its job is to ordain the priests and set them apart for their holy work.
After the second ram is presented in verse 19, we get to verse 20, which is one of the most unforgettable images in the whole Bible. Some of the ram's blood is taken and carefully dabbed on 3 specific places on each priest. First, the tip of their right ear, consecrating everything they will hear from God. Then, the thumb of their right hand, consecrating all the work they will do. And finally, the big toe of their right foot, consecrating the path they will walk in service to God. Every part of them, their hearing, their actions, their journey, is now marked and dedicated. Verse 21 takes it even further. It combines the 2 most powerful elements of the day. Some of the blood from the altar, representing a life given in sacrifice, is mixed with the sacred anointing oil, representing God's divine calling. Just picture this new mixture being sprinkled all over Aaron, his sons, and even their brand new priestly garments. This single act makes everything and everyone it touches utterly holy, completely set apart for service. Now from verses 22 to 28, we watch this unique ritual called the wave offering. Here's how it works. First, specific parts of the ram and some of that consecrated bread are placed right into the hands of Aaron and his sons. They then literally wave them back and forth before the Lord. It's a symbolic gesture of presenting the offering to God and then receiving it back from him. Most of these items are then burned on the altar, but in a really key moment, the breast of the ram is waved separately and is set aside as the priest's own portion. This establishes a principle. God will always provide for those who serve him. You might think after all that, we're done, but this ceremony isn't a one-and-done event. This next phase is all about solidifying the consecration over a full week and establishing how this new priestly role will be passed down for generations. Verses 29 and 30 look to the future. They state that Aaron's holy garments are a legacy, meant to be worn by his successor for 7 days during their own consecration ceremony. Then, from verses 31 to 34, something incredible happens. The priests are told to take the rest of that ordination ram and the bread, cook it right there in the holy place, and eat it. Imagine that. They are literally internalizing the very sacrifice that made them holy. But there's a strict rule. No one else can eat it, and there can be no leftovers. It is exclusively for them, a sacred communion. And here is the key to making this whole thing permanent. Verses 35 to 37 command that this entire elaborate ritual, the sacrifices, the anointing, the offerings, has to be repeated every single day for 7 days in a row. A full week of dedication. That repetition is what solidifies their new status. It also purifies the altar itself, making it most holy. After 7 days, there is zero doubt. The priests and the altar are completely and totally set apart for God. Okay, the one-time 7-day ceremony is complete. So what's next? Well, this final section shifts our perspective. It reveals the ongoing practice this whole thing established, and, more importantly, the incredible promise that was the entire point from the very beginning.
Verses 38 to 42 lay out the new normal. Every single day from now on, 2 lambs are to be offered on the altar, one in the morning and a second one at twilight. Each one is accompanied by offerings of flour, oil, and wine. This is a perpetual, continual burnt offering. It becomes the new rhythm of life at the tabernacle, a constant daily reminder of devotion and God's presence.
So why? Why all this effort? Why the daily offerings? Verses 43 and 44 give us the answer straight from God. There I will meet with the children of Israel. The whole point of a holy place and holy people was to create a meeting point, a place where God's glory could actually dwell and where he could interact with his people. God himself is the one who consecrates the space and the priests for this exact purpose.
And this brings us to the absolute heart of the entire chapter. Verses 45 and 46 are the ultimate reason why.
The reason for the exodus from Egypt, for the tabernacle, for the priesthood, for every single rule and ritual, it's summed up right here. I will dwell among the children of Israel and will be their God. The goal was never just a ceremony. It was communion. It was for God to live among his people. You know, those ancient priests had blood applied to their ear, thumb, and toe as a physical sign of total dedication. It kind of leaves us with a question to think about, doesn't it? In our own lives, what does it look like to consciously dedicate every part of ourselves, what we listen to, the work of our hands, and the path we walk each day, to a purpose that's bigger than we are?